Long before hobbits walked out of the Shire, long before the Ring of Power was forged, there were the stones, the Palantíri, 7 crystal spheres, crafted by the Elves of Valinor and given as a gift to the Númenóreans. To the untrained eye, they were only black glass orbs. But to those who knew their secrets, the Palantíri were windows. Windows that could pierce across leagues of land and sea. With them, kings could speak to each other from distant fortresses, armies could be guided without riders, and the farthest reaches of Middle-earth could be watched in silence. When the faithful Númenóreans fled the downfall of their island, they carried the 7 stones to Middle-earth. There they became treasures of Gondor and Arnor, each set in a tower or stronghold, each tied to the others by unseen bonds. The stone of Osgiliath, the great master stone, could look into them all. In Minas Anor and Minas Ithil, Palantíri guided Gondor's watch over the world. In Orthanc, the stone guarded Isengard, and in the north, the kingdom of Arnor kept its own 3 stones, at Amansul, Elostirion, and Annúminas. For a time, they were tools of wisdom and unity. But like so many of Tolkien's gifts, their power carried danger. Because the stones did not lie. They showed truth, but not always the truth you wanted to see. When Arnor fell into ruin, its Palantíri were lost to time, swallowed by wars and the wilderness. The great stone of Osgiliath was cast into the Anduin and vanished forever. The Ithil stone was seized by Sauron when he took Minas Ithil and turned it into Minas Morgul. With it, he ensnared others, showing only what would break their hearts or bend their will. Even Saruman the Wise, proud in Orthanc, was undone by what he saw in his stone, and Denethor, steward of Gondor, looked too long into the fire and was driven to despair. But here is the mystery. Not all the Palantíri were accounted for. Of the 7, we know the fate of some, destroyed, drowned, or twisted by Sauron. But what of the others? Could there still be lost stones, buried deep in forgotten ruins, or hidden in distant lands? What if one lies beneath the sands of Harad, or in a vault of Umbar, waiting for the day some reckless hand uncovers it? Imagine what it would mean. A Palantír in the hands of a new master, a king, a tyrant, or even someone who never meant to use it. A single stone could change the fate of kingdoms, just as it once guided Gondor's strength. Even Tolkien leaves the question open. Some stones are lost to history. Their gaze could still be out there, unseen, waiting for someone to look in. And that is the heart of this mystery. The Palantíri were not simply tools. They were bridges between minds, between worlds. To look into one was to risk being seen in return. To wield one was to risk being bent by its vision. So when you think of Middle-earth's greatest mysteries, do not think only of the lost realms or the forgotten peoples. Think of the Palantíri, the stones that may yet sit in the dark, unblinking, watching even now. From the green fields of the east we descend into darkness, into the deep halls of Khazad-dûm, where the last of the great terrors of the First Age slept in secret, the Balrog of Moria. We know Balrogs as the fearsome fire demons who served Morgoth in the First Age, leading his armies and scattering entire hosts of elves. They were Maiar, the same order of beings as Gandalf and Sauron, but twisted into creatures of shadow and flame. Most were destroyed in the War of Wrath, when Morgoth was overthrown and the world was remade. But one survived. It fled into the roots of the misty mountains and hid itself for thousands of years, until at last the dwarves of Khazad-dûm dug too deep. In their greed they sought mithril, the most precious metal in all of Middle-earth, and they awakened the sleeping fire. The creature became known as Durin's Bane, for it slew King Durin VI and drove the dwarves from their greatest city. And here is where the mystery begins. We never learn this Balrog's name. We never hear its voice. We are told only that it was a terror so great that the dwarves abandoned Khazad-dûm completely, and that even Sauron himself never came to claim Moria while it remained there. What was this creature's purpose after the fall of Morgoth? Was it simply hiding, waiting for the world to forget? Or was it guarding something in the depths of Moria, some remnant of its Dark Master's power? And why did it remain alone? Were there truly no other Balrogs left in the world, or might others still sleep under mountains far away, waiting to rise again? When Gandalf finally faced it on the bridge of Khazad-dûm, we saw just how terrible its power truly was. Flame and shadow, whip and sword, a battle between two Maiar that shattered the bridge and shook the world. This was not just a random monster. This was a living remnant of the First Age, a shadow of a war so ancient most had forgotten it ever happened. And that is why the Balrog of Moria remains one of Tolkien's most haunting enigmas, a reminder that Middle-earth never truly escapes its past. The shadows of the First Age can still rise, even in the heart of the Third. And if there were once Balrogs hiding in the mountains, what else might still be out there, waiting to be found? To find out, we must travel far beyond the misty mountains, into lands most have never seen, and follow the trail of two mysterious figures who vanished from the histories, the Lost Blue Wizards. Far to the east, beyond the maps we know, two travelers rode under shadowed skies. They were Istari, just like Gandalf, Saruman, and Radagast, but their names have been almost forgotten. Alatar and Palando, the Blue Wizards. When the Valar sent the Istari into Middle-earth, their mission was clear: to unite the free peoples and oppose the return of Sauron. But where Gandalf and Saruman walked among elves and men, the Blue Wizards vanished into the east and were never seen again. And here lies the mystery. Tolkien himself gave us two very different answers to their fate. In one version, the Blue Wizards failed. They were ensnared by the darkness they had come to fight, founding secret cults that worshipped Sauron's power and spreading corruption across the east. If this is true, their story is a tragedy, a warning that even the wise can fall. But in Tolkien's later writings, a different picture emerges. He suggests that the Blue Wizards might have been the key to victory. They traveled among the Easterlings and Southrons, stirring rebellion against Sauron, weakening his forces long before the War of the Ring. If this is true, they were unsung heroes. Their actions in distant lands may have saved Gondor and Rohan from being overwhelmed. Either way, the Blue Wizards were crucial to the great game being played across Middle-earth. If they failed, they became part of the reason Sauron's shadow grew so strong. If they succeeded, their quiet victories bought the West enough time for the ring to be found and destroyed. We do not know what they looked like, where they traveled, or what words they spoke. We only know that they never returned. Their story is a blank page waiting to be filled, one of the great unanswered questions that gives Tolkien's world its sense of depth. What I love most about this mystery is that it expands the borders of Middle-earth. The War of the Ring feels so vast to us. But for the Blue Wizards, it was only one part of a struggle spanning entire continents. And it makes you wonder, if their story had been told, what would we have learned about the East? What kingdoms, what cities, what forgotten heroes fought and died beyond the reach of the Fellowship's song? We may never know. But our next mystery takes us back to the West, to those who did not fade into the background. When the War of the Ring was finally won, many thought it was the dawn of a golden age. Sauron was gone, the darkness was lifted, and peace returned to Middle-earth. But for the Elves, it was the beginning of the end. Throughout the Third Age, the Elves had used their 3 rings to preserve the beauty of their realms. Rivendell, Lothlorien, and even the Grey Havens remained almost timeless, while the world around them changed. But the destruction of the One Ring broke the power of the 3. Their magic began to fade, and with it, the last enchantment of the Elder Days. This is why the Elves left. It was not simply a choice to sail away. It was the closing of an age. Imagine walking through a forest you had tended for thousands of years, knowing that its beauty would slowly wither no matter how hard you tried to preserve it. Imagine carrying millennia of memory, every joy and every grief, until the weight of it became too much to bear. That is the burden of the Elves. Some might see their departure as a tragedy, but it is also an act of acceptance. Their time in Middle-earth was over. They had shaped its history, fought its wars, and guarded it through shadow and fire. Now they laid down that duty and returned to the Undying Lands, seeking rest. Tolkien described their choice with a note of sorrow, but also of inevitability. The Elves were never meant to stay forever. Middle-earth was always destined to become the realm of men, who were called the guests of the world, but who would one day inherit it entirely. When Galadriel sailed into the west, when Elrond left Rivendell behind, when even Gandalf stepped aboard the White Ship, the last light of the Elder Days went with them. And perhaps that is why their departure is so moving. It reminds us that even the brightest lights must eventually fade, that every golden age, no matter how beautiful, must give way to the future. In that silence left behind, men became the true stewards of Middle-earth. Their time had come, but what they made of it was up to them. And yet, even as the Elves faded into legend, one final riddle remained. One figure stood apart from the rest, neither fading nor departing, older than memory, and immune even to the power of the One Ring. And that is where we find our last and most enduring mystery, Tom Bombadil. Of all the mysteries in Tolkien's world, none is stranger or more debated than Tom Bombadil. In the Fellowship of the Ring, the hobbits meet him in the old forest. He is a merry figure, dressed in blue and yellow, singing nonsense songs and laughing at dangers that terrify everyone else. But beneath the cheerful surface, Tom Bombadil is something far more unusual. When Frodo offers him the One Ring, Tom puts it on, and nothing happens. He does not vanish. He does not feel its pull. When Frodo later puts on the ring in Tom's house, Tom sees him clearly and even laughs about it. This moment changes everything. The One Ring is the most powerful object in Middle-earth, capable of corrupting even the wise. It drove Boromir to madness, twisted Gollum into a shadow of himself, and haunted Frodo until the very end. But Tom Bombadil is completely untouched. Who or what is he? Some believe he is a Maya, like Gandalf and Sauron, a spirit sent to watch over a small part of the world. Others argue he is something even older, the first spirit to awaken when the world was young, perhaps older than the Valar themselves. Tolkien once said that Tom was meant to represent something unique, the spirit of the vanishing countryside, a reminder that not everything in the world is about power and war. And perhaps that is why Tom is so mysterious. He is not a warrior, not a king, not a hero in the usual sense. He is a question mark at the heart of Middle-earth, proof that there are still parts of the story that no one, not even Tolkien, fully explained. Tom Bombadil reminds us that not every riddle needs an answer. Some mysteries are meant to remain, leaving us to wonder. This is the end of our journey through the 5 greatest mysteries of Middle-earth, from the vanished blue wizards to the fading of the elves, and finally to Tom Bombadil. Each of these riddles adds depth to Tolkien's world and keeps us coming back for more. Because maybe that's the real magic of Middle-earth. It is not just a story with a beginning and an end. It is a world that feels bigger than us, full of unanswered questions that spark our imagination. Which of these mysteries fascinated you the most? Were the Blue Wizards heroes or traitors? And who, or what, do you believe Tom Bombadil truly is? Let me know in the comments. I read them all, and I love seeing your theories. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the mysteries of Tolkien's world, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next lore journey.